Indoor training. You either love it or hate it. Reasons why people love indoor training are quite straightforward. Firstly, it is very time efficient. Secondly, you stay warm and dry, at least until you start sweating loads. It's quite accessible. There is now a huge online community, and that in turn means that you can either race or train or just ride for the fun of it. The reasons people hate indoor training are, well, they're reducing, for starters. The reason I used to hate it was because it was boring, unrealistic, and very, very painful. Things have changed a lot since then though, but many people probably just assume that they still hate indoor training based on previous experience using outdated tech. Others just don't fancy it or are put off by the price. However, indoor training is one aspect of the cycling industry where functionality of the hardware seems to be increasing at the same time as prices decreasing. So coming up, I'm going to look at a couple of the more recent budget options when it comes to indoor cycling, as well as finding out what I would get if I decided to add a few bells and whistles. Not that you need bells and whistles indoors. I now text my butler on WhatsApp. So what hardware do you need to start cycling indoors? Well, some of you will remember wheel-on trainers from the not too distant past. They were bloody awful, and that is putting it kindly. Now, a direct drive wheel-off trainer feels 100 times better and can work with indoor training apps like Zwift. They have genuinely been a transformative experience, I would say. And it's one that's now been made simpler to access by adding the Zwift cog. Direct drive trainers have been around for quite a while now, over a decade, and they measure your power, which is how hard you're pedaling. They also offer the possibility of linking up with training apps. But gone are the days of forking out $1,000 or more to get started. There are smart trainers now available for less than €300. We've had a look at a few options to see what you get for your money. Before I get into that though, I'd just like to be clear that GCN work with a number of partners, including Zwift. Not only do they help us make the free-to-view content we make, they also support cycling more widely, the Tour de France Femme, Avec, Zwift, etc. And as we work with them, I'm going to be trying these trainer setups on the Zwift platform. There are other options out there, but Zwift is the biggest online training platform with by far the most users, so it seems like the right place to start. Okay, let's start then with an entry-level option. And one that's actually pretty new to the market. It's next to me here, it's from Rysel, or Rysel, and it's called the D100. You can currently get it in the UK and in Europe for less than £300 with the Zwift cog and click. More on that later on. It's an example of just how reasonable things are getting when it comes to starting with indoor cycling and a smart trainer. Now, some of you watching this will be aware that I'm a bit of a bargain hunter. You could also describe me as tight or simply that I don't like spending money if I don't have to. Either way, in researching for this video, I had a quick look on Temu and AliExpress to see if I could find something of similar function and standard to this Rysel trainer for a fraction of the price. I couldn't. Nowhere near actually, and given that all the options I found on there came without the cassette that they needed, I couldn't find anything that matched this trainer at all. Now, I just mentioned the cassette, which is these cogs here on this Wahoo trainer, because previously you would have to consider that and purchase one to put on the direct drive trainer for use with your bike and make sure it was specific to the bike you were using. Either that, or you had to constantly remove one from your wheel, put it on the trainer when you wanted to ride indoors, remove it from the trainer and put it back on your bike when you wanted to ride outdoors, which was a pain in the backside. However, this Rysel trainer comes, as I said, with the Zwift cog and click. That enables virtual shifting and also allows you to use pretty much any bike on your direct drive trainer, including this Pinarello, which my colleague Ollie picked up off Facebook Marketplace for less than £500 just a few months ago. The fact you can use any bike pretty much on a Zwift cog and click is a huge upgrade from previous direct drive trainers, and this particular trainer from Rysel is also very quiet. A huge plus, I'd say, no matter how far away your neighbours are. What else do you need to get started? Well, I would strongly recommend a fan. A regular desktop or floor standing fan will do just fine, plus a mat or an old towel for the floor, and then another towel or two to help you manage all the sweat you'll generate even with a fan. And that's about it. So what are the limitations of a setup like this? Well, that depends largely on you and what you plan to do with it. This Van Rysel unit tops out at 600 watts. Does that matter? Well, it sort of depends really. If you want to do sprint training, you can produce more than that, then maybe. Same goes for if you want to race on Zwift. I tried quite hard, it has to be said, to go over 600 watts, and I did manage it. And what I found was that what happened was on the screen, it just stayed at 600 watts, even though I was producing way more power, probably like 650, maybe even 670. In reality, there are probably quite a few of you watching this who can hit out at over 600 watts for a few seconds, but whether or not you need that capability in a trainer then depends on whether or not you're doing sprint training or you just want to sprint to the finish line in a Zwift race. If you're only concerned with doing endurance training or even VO2 max training, then I would say that 600 watts is more than enough for the vast majority of people. I mean, personally, I can't remember going over 500 watts on an indoor session for quite a few years. This trainer is also limited as to what it can replicate in terms of gradients on the climbs, in that it'll only go up to 6%. So if you come across something that's steeper than 6% in your game online, it will just stay at that percentage. Is that an issue? Again, not really, I would say, for the vast majority of people, because you're still going to be trying hard, it's still going to feel hard. In terms of power measurement, Van Rysel claimed that this trainer is accurate to plus or minus 5%, which admittedly is nowhere near as precise as some other trainers that I'll be talking about later on, but it's probably still enough to ensure that you're staying within your training zones. Another plus to this particular model is that it's foldable, and when it is folded, it's quite compact. So you could easily put it under a desk or a table if you're limited on space. So if your objective is to give indoor training a try and you're not a top-end racer on Zwift, this trainer is a decent option. So what do you get if you spend a bit more money? Well, there are plenty of options around that also come with the Zwift cog and click. The JetBlack Victory comes with one and is available in the USA, UK, Europe, Canada and Australia, and will cost you around $400, £400 or 450 euros. It gives you 2% power accuracy, a max power of 1800 watts, and the ability to climb 18% gradients, which is more than I need/want. The Wahoo KICKR Zwift One is similar to the JetBlack, both in price and functionality, and there's an option at the moment to get it along with a discounted Zwift subscription. For another £100 or so, shop around, the Elite Direto XR with Zwift cog and click claims to be slightly more accurate again at 1.5% and go up even steeper gradients. Knock yourselves out if that's what you need or want. So what if you'd like to take this to an extreme and get the best indoor setup that you can? Well, one option is to get a dedicated unit such as this, the Zwift Ride, or this, the Wahoo KICKR bike. There are a couple of real plus points to dedicated units like these. The first of those is that you can just leave them set up and ready to go. The second is that you can set them up for multiple users. So if you've got the money, and indeed the space, they're definitely well worth considering. However, if you would like to stick with your normal everyday bike for your indoor training, there are some premium options here as well. For example, the trainer that we use here at GCN HQ, which is this Wahoo KICKR Move. This is also available with the Zwift cog and click, and it has a power measurement accuracy of plus or minus 1%, which is about as good as it gets, whether that be an indoor trainer or an on-the-bike power meter, or even indeed in a laboratory setting. It will also measure up to 2,200 watts, which is a figure I am yet to crack. Just about, obviously. The other key function of this is that there's 8 inches or 20 centimeters of movement front to rear, which is going to add to the comfort of your indoor training. And another thing with this is that it's super quiet. Add in the KICKR Climb, which raises and lowers the front end of your bike according to the gradients you're riding, and the headwind fan, which can be controlled via your head unit or just by your own heart rate, and you have what I would describe as a very slick setup. Certainly one that adds to the immersive experience that Zwift have created with their platform, and I would say one that removes some of the mental barriers to getting on your indoor trainer in the first place. Because whilst, yes, it will still be hard and painful if you make it so, it's also enjoyable. Now, apart from the fact that a setup like this will set you back in the region of £2,000, I would say the only other drawback is that you really want to have space somewhere in your house so you can leave this whole thing set up, at least for the periods in which you're doing the most amount of indoor training, which for most people will be over the winter months. So there are a few options for you when it comes to indoor training setups at different price points. If you pay more, you do get more, but at the same time, it's never been cheaper to get started with indoor cycling at the lower end. Incidentally, the Zwift Ride bike, which you now see here behind me, is compatible with all of the trainers that we featured in this video, so it might be a consideration now, or if you're looking to upgrade in the near future. Also, in the description below, we'll put a list of Zwift compatible trainers so that you know what you're looking for. Right, I would like to know what trainer setup you've got at home and why. Why are you pleased with it? Is it because it was financially quite cheap, or because it's great at performance, or both? Let us know in the comments, because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that will be interested in what you're using and why you're so happy with it. Right, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.